David had been driving for hours when the storm broke across the lonely stretch of highway. Rain fell in relentless sheets, and thunder rattled the old car as if the night itself wanted to devour him. His GPS kept glitching, showing him surrounded by nothing but endless woods. Fear slowly crept in as the road signs disappeared, leaving him lost in the dark night. Just when he thought of pulling over, a dimly lit sign caught his eye through the downpour. Hollowbrook Motel, room available. Relief washed over him. The building appeared ancient, almost forgotten by time, with peeling paint and a flickering neon light buzzing like a dying insect. He parked, grabbed his bag, and hurried through the pouring rain toward the entrance. Inside, the motel lobby was eerily silent. The air smelled of damp carpet and something metallic, almost like blood. Behind the desk sat an old man with cloudy eyes, his lips curling into a strange grin. "You're just in time," the man said, voice raspy. "Only one room left. Room 6. David hesitated, unsettled by the way the man emphasized those words. But exhaustion overpowered suspicion. He paid in cash and took the tarnished brass key. The man's cold fingers lingered a second too long as he handed it over. "Stay inside your room tonight," he added.
"No matter what you hear, do not open the door."
The warning struck David as bizarre, but he brushed it off as small-town weirdness. He climbed the creaking stairs, each step groaning beneath his weight. The hallway smelled even stronger of dampness and iron. Room 6 waited at the far end, its number barely visible on the rotting wood. When he pushed the door open, the stench hit him, mildew, dust, and something faintly rotten. Inside, the room was old but usable. A single bed, peeling wallpaper, a dusty lamp, and a cracked mirror. David set his bag down and flopped onto the bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. The storm outside roared, rain hammering against the window. He closed his eyes, desperate for rest, but the old man's warning echoed in his mind. "No matter what you hear, do not open the door." An hour later, David woke with a start. The room was freezing cold, his breath visible in the air. The storm had quieted, but a faint scratching sound now came from the hallway. At first, he thought it was the wind. Then it grew louder, like nails dragging along the wooden floor. His heart pounded. Slowly, he sat up and listened. A whisper followed, faint but clear, "David." His blood ran cold. Nobody should know his name here. He forced himself to stay still, clutching the thin blanket. The scratching stopped. Silence pressed down on him, heavy and suffocating. He glanced at the cracked mirror across the room and froze. For a split second, he saw a shadow standing behind him in the reflection. But when he spun around, the room was empty. Panic surged. He told himself it was exhaustion, his mind playing tricks. But then came the knocking. Soft at first, then louder, then furious, shaking the door. David leapt from the bed, staring at the handle as it rattled violently. "Don't open it," he whispered to himself. The old man's warning burned in his brain. The knocking stopped suddenly, replaced by something worse, a child's laugh, high-pitched and echoing through the walls. Terrified, David stumbled backward until he hit the bed. The laugh grew distant, fading into the storm outside. Shaking, he turned off the lamp and forced himself to lie down. Hours dragged by as the wind howled and strange whispers ebbed and flowed through the night. He shut his eyes tight, praying for morning. But somewhere deep down, he knew this night was only beginning.
Come.
Every time he closed his eyes, the whispers seemed to grow closer. He tried covering his ears with the pillow, but still the faint voices slipped through, weaving into his thoughts like poison. David, come out, open the door. The sound was neither male nor female, but something in between, hollow and inhuman. Suddenly, the old lamp on the nightstand flickered back to life, though David hadn't touched it. Its dim yellow glow stretched shadows across the peeling wallpaper. That was when he noticed it. The cracked mirror on the wall had begun to fog over, as though someone were breathing on the other side of the glass. His stomach dropped. Slowly, words began to appear, written in the condensation. "We are waiting." David's breath hitched, his pulse hammering in his ears. He grabbed his bag, thinking to leave, storm or not. But when he reached the door, his hand froze. The handle was ice cold, colder than metal should ever be. Slowly, the metal began to turn under his grip, moving on its own, as though something on the other side was trying to open it. He ripped his hand away and stumbled back. The door creaked, not opening fully, but just enough for darkness to seep through. Then came the sound of footsteps in the hallway, heavy and deliberate. Someone was pacing slowly back and forth outside his room. David pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath. The steps stopped directly in front of room 6. For a moment, there was silence. Then, in a deep guttural voice, it spoke, "You should not have come here." The air grew heavier, suffocating. David gasped, fighting for breath, when suddenly the ceiling above him creaked. He looked up, horrified, as a shadow moved across the water-stained surface, like someone crawling just above. The plaster bulged downward, dust falling onto the bed. Heart racing, David grabbed the lamp and smashed the cracked mirror, hoping to break the curse. The glass shattered, but instead of relief, he heard a scream high, piercing, and full of rage, echoing from within the broken shards. Terrified, he backed into the corner of the room. That's when he noticed something impossible. The broken mirror pieces on the floor no longer reflected him. Instead, they showed the hallway outside his door. In the reflection, David could clearly see a tall figure standing there, its face hidden in darkness. And slowly, in the shards, the figure turned its head toward him. David's chest tightened. His instincts screamed at him to run, but where? He was trapped. The storm outside howled louder, the rain slamming against the windows as though the entire world was trying to drown him inside this cursed room. He gripped the lamp tighter, sweat dripping from his face, when the figure in the mirror began to raise its hand. And then, 3 sharp knocks echoed on the door. Not frantic this time, but calm, almost patient. The 3 knocks echoed in the room, each one sinking deeper into David's bones. He didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat was too dry, his legs too weak. For a moment, there was silence again. Then slowly, the door creaked open on its own, just a sliver, and the storm outside seemed to hush, as if the world itself was holding its breath. David raised the lamp higher, its trembling glow spilling into the hallway. Nothing. Just darkness. But then, from the corner of the room, the broken shards of glass shimmered, showing something the naked eye could not. In the reflection, the hallway wasn't empty. The tall figure was standing there, closer than before. And this time, David could see its face, or what was left of it. A hollow void where eyes should have been, a mouth stretched far too wide, grinning. The door pushed wider. The figure stepped inside. But in reality, the room remained empty. Only the mirrors revealed its presence. David's mind spiraled in terror. He staggered backward until his back hit the wall. "Stay away!" he shouted, though his voice cracked with fear. The figure in the shards tilted its head. And then, as though obeying some unseen command, all the broken pieces of glass began to tremble and lift into the air. One by one, they floated, surrounding David in a deadly circle. He froze, every muscle locked in terror. The reflections of the figure multiplied across every shard, dozens of hollow eyes staring at him from every angle. Suddenly, the lights went out. Total darkness. Only the sound of the storm remained. David's chest heaved as he felt the sharp edges of the glass shift closer, brushing against his skin. Then came a whisper, clear, cold, and impossibly close to his ear. "Now you belong to room 6. There was a final, deafening crash. The shards rained down. The storm outside silenced in an instant. When morning came, the innkeeper entered to check on the guest. The bed was perfectly made, the room quiet, as though no one had ever stayed there. Only one detail stood out. Etched deep into the wall above the bed, in jagged scratches, were the words, "Room 6 is never empty."